Hi friends, this is Arie of Pups Unleashed, and in this video we will go through 5 easy at-home enrichment activities for your dogs. This is a DIY video, so you don't need any previous training or fancy materials for it to create some awesome activities for your dog. If you've never heard of enrichment before, it's any type of activity you can provide your dog with that feeds into a natural instinct. So this can be sniffing, this can be eating, this can be exploration-based problem solving. The possibilities are almost endless. And for this, you don't need any sort of fancy training because essentially enrichment is just letting a dog be a dog. It's essential that dogs have mental stimulation, so I highly recommend that whatever the activities are that you have planned for your dog, it is something enriching. It will tire them out mentally, which is good. We often think about physical exercise for our dogs, but a lot of times we forget about mental exercise. And dogs are extremely intelligent, so they need mental exercise, and they will get it one way or another. A lot of times when you see destructive behaviors in the house, they are a result of boredom. So if we give our dogs something enriching to do, it will mentally stimulate them, and then the time where they're not participating in those activities, they're likely to do something that is more of an activity you'd like to see, like maybe take a nap or snuggle or just kind of relax. Since we are talking about enrichment and we're talking about feeding, something important that I want to make note of is if you notice at any point when your dog is either doing enrichment or just eating or playing in your house, they start to guard something. That's something you want to pay attention to. Resource guarding essentially is when your dog decides they have something they want that's valuable and they don't want to give it up. So if at any point you're doing any sort of feeding activity or any type of activity where your dog does not want you to approach, what you do in that situation is you leave them alone. So I just want to make note of that if you see any sort of guarding behavior out of your dog when you're doing enrichment, either leave them alone completely, or if you have to walk by them in any sort of close vicinity, when you walk by, just toss a little treat or piece of food in their direction and keep going. That way your dog does not think you're there to take their resource. And if you have multiple dogs and you're doing enrichment, the other thing that you want to do is physically separate them. So whether that's enrichment in the crate or you use baby gates in your house or someone's inside, someone's outside, whatever that setup looks like for you, please make sure that dogs are separated during enrichment and that you are not pestering your dog during enrichment. They need to feel secure in their resource to be able to just love these activities. So stay away, always carefully monitor, but from a distance, and your dog's gonna have a great time. I call this activity the Snuffle towel. It's very similar to what you would do if you purchased a Snuffle mat from the store or online, but this one is free because you have everything that you need at home to set this up. So the only materials that you will need for your Snuffle towel activity is some type of old towel, so full-size one if you have a medium to large size dog. Smaller towels like a tea towel or a dish towel tend to work better if you have a small or very, very tiny dog as well. You can also use something like an old baby blanket or just an old blanket that you have around the house as well. Don't pick something you don't want to get messed up. And then the other thing you need is food. So what I have here is just plain kibble. You're also welcome to add in some training treats or some dog-safe human foods like blueberries, chunks of carrots, plain cooked sweet potato, whatever your dog loves, as long as it is dog safe and is not particularly messy for this particular activity. So to start out, let's use the bigger towel. But if you're using the smaller towel, the steps would be the same, just on a smaller scale. So you're going to lay your towel out flat, and then we're going to stuff it with whatever the food is that you're using. There's no right or wrong way to stuff this towel, but I'll show you what I typically do. Essentially, you want to make as many folds in the towel as possible because each fold is an opportunity to hide something. So usually I start by putting a bunch of food on one side of the towel like this. And then I'll fold it over. Now I have a new space to work with. I like to put some down the middle here. And then I usually do a tri-fold, but again, this is up to you. Fold over again. And then for my final fold, I typically like to roll it. So some pieces are gonna fall out. That's normal. Don't be afraid to make a mess. That's just how it goes with enrichment. And then your final product would look something like this. So it really doesn't look fancy. It just looks like a rolled up towel, but this is packed full of an entire meal. So because this is an easy enrichment activity, feel free to just measure out the kibble for whatever your dog's meal size should be, and then do exactly what I just did, and then you can just offer this to them. I put it on the floor, or you can put it in a crate and just let your dog sniff through it and pull out all those little pieces. It's a great activity for enrichment feeding, and it can replace a meal. This enrichment activity I like to call cardboard enrichment. For this, there are tons of possibilities for your materials. So here are a few options, but just know that if you have something different at home, as long as it's cardboard you can fill with stuff, you're good to go. So some examples that I have here, we have these toilet paper and paper towel rolls. So next time that you run out of toilet paper or paper towels, don't throw these guys away. Keep them. They're awesome for enrichment. I also have a box that came in the mail, so especially around the holidays, you have a lot of boxes coming in, so save these guys. And then in addition to packages that come in the mail, also look for product boxes around your house. So old cereal boxes, seltzer water boxes, pasta boxes, just brown paper or cardboard is awesome. This activity is a shredding activity. So what you're going to do for this is you're going to stuff food into all of these things. So let me show you a couple of different ways you can do this. I'll start here with our toilet paper and paper towel rolls. So you can actually turn these into enrichment feeders. If you take one end and you push it closed like this, and then in the other end, you're going to put some food. So kibble, dog safe human foods, little tiny bits of treats. Put a bunch in there. And then you would do the same thing on this end that you did to the other side. You're gonna push inward, and now you have this completely sealed toilet paper roll, or paper towel roll rather. You can do the same exact thing with toilet paper rolls. It's just on a smaller scale. So again, think about the size of your dog. This is probably more appropriate for small breed dogs. And then this over here is probably more appropriate for medium and large breed dogs. This is where you're also mindful of your dog's individual differences. If your dog eats cardboard instead of shreds cardboard to get to tastier stuff, might not be the best option, or just carefully monitor. But for a lot of dogs, once they get the idea that you can stuff food in cardboard, they usually just shred the cardboard and eat the food. So these are some little cardboard feeders with something like paper towel and toilet paper rolls. You can do the same thing with other bits of cardboard. And if you really want to kick it up a notch, what you can do is combine them all together. So cereal box. And then I'm gonna put these in here, so it's like a present within a present, right? Seal them as best you can without using adhesive. You don't want to use tape or anything like that that has adhesive, so you can kind of fold it over. And then just to even further make it interesting, let's put this guy in here and some food. And then the other thing you can do is also put toys in there, or something like a stuffed Kong. If you have more of those commercial type enrichment objects, you're welcome to shove those in as well, but they're just not needed. It depends on what you're looking for. So then what I would do is I would put this box on the ground, I would tell my dogs to find it, and then I would just let them tread it apart. Remember, one dog per enrichment object, so separate dogs if you have multiple, but this is a great activity. It's gonna allow your dog to shred through stuff, exercise that instinct to destroy some objects and get awesome food in the process. So get creative with cardboard. There's tons of it around, and you can do a lot of really neat stuff with it as long as you monitor your dog and make sure they're not eating it. This enrichment activity I like to call the Find It game. And similar to many of our other enrichments, you can do this a million different ways. So this is just to get you thinking about it. So to work with the Find It enrichment, what you're going to do is obtain some type of food. Again, I have kibble here. Feel free to use whatever you want. And then you need objects under which you're going to hide food. So a really good option if you have a dog that tends to just consume anything is you can hide food under other edible things. So for example, I have some lettuce leaves here. If I'm going to hide some food under the lettuce leaves, then I don't run the risk that my dog is going to accidentally eat a household object in the process of trying to sniff out food. Another option is you can use household things like towels, pillows, dog toys. If you have any plastic cups, you're basically just looking for something to hide food underneath, and you're going to set up a little obstacle course for your dog. So what you would do is you would find a spot on the floor. Again, make sure this is only accessible to one dog at a time because you don't want any sort of guarding type situation. And just make some small caches of food on the ground. It works best if you vary the type of food you use. I'm just using kibble right here for the sake of demonstration, but when I set this up in my house, there's usually a lot of different things hidden. So we'll pretend like this is the living room floor. So first start by setting up little caches of food, and then what you're going to do is go through and cover each one. And then once you cover each cache of food, put down some more coverage items that have nothing underneath. They're kind of the dummy objects here, so that your dog has to find the ones that have something underneath, and then there's also ones that are there just to make it a little more challenging. So then what you would do is you would release your dog into a room where all this is set up on the floor. You would say, find it, and then watch them sniff. As they find each individual cache, if you want to improve their scenting skills, praise them each time they find something so they know that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. If you just want to watch, that's fine too. Remember, this is what dogs want to do, so you really don't need training for it. But if you want to work on their scenting skills, feel free to do that. And then as always, when you're done, just clean up anything that's left over before you let another dog in the environment. And you now have this really great activity that takes, 2 minutes to set up, and you can do a meal like this for your dogs as well. This enrichment activity I like to call the bag lunch because our number one material that we're going to use are just brown paper lunch bags. So a lot of people have these around your home, and if you do need to buy them, they're like $3 at the store to buy a 100 pack. So your materials for this particular activity are going to be your brown paper bags. You want some type of kibble, usually, because a lot of times you use this as a meal replacement. And then some dog-safe human foods. You can use whatever you want as long as it's dog-safe human foods. This is just an example of some of the items I have. I have some fruit, I have some celery, tiny bit of cheese that I'm gonna shred, and then some dog-safe seeds, which these are sunflower seeds. So again, make sure you always look up whether or not the food is safe for dogs. If it is, it's a great option. And then an optional material for this is something that we've talked about already. This is a toilet paper roll. You don't have to use this, but it just adds an extra layer to it. So toilet paper roll or paper towel rolls are a great complement to this activity. So to set this up, it's extremely simple. You're going to start with your brown paper bag, open it up, and then usually I use probably 2 brown paper bags, sometimes 3 to make it a little bit more challenging, but you start with the empty one and just put some of your food at the very bottom of the bag. That way you know the second your dog gets into it, there's already a built-in reward before they get through the more challenging parts of it. So usually I put the kibble itself in the bottom of the bag, and then I save the more high-value stuff for some of the other bags. So I'm going to take another empty bag and put some of those high value objects into it. Again, be mindful of the size of your dog and the amount of calories they're supposed to get. The amount I'm using here, probably a medium or a large size dog. If you have a Chihuahua, make sure you scale it down for a small size dog. That's why it's important to measure your kibble and materials ahead of time. So I have some really high value stuff in this bag. I'm gonna put some more kibble in as well. And then you're just gonna crinkle it up, add it into that bag that has the kibble, and then do the same thing again. Put some fruit, some seeds, shred a little bit of cheese. Remember, cheese is high calorie, so in moderation, always. Also be mindful if your dog has any sort of dairy allergies or sensitivities. Again, some more kibble, crinkle it up, add it there. So now I have this bag that is full of food and other brown paper bags. And then you're just gonna roll it down like you would a bag of lunch that you're sending someone to school or to work with. If you're using your toilet paper roll, fold it like before, stuff it full of whatever food you want, and then it's just, another added enrichment object in there. And then what you do, call your dog over, ask him for a sit or some kind of behavior, and then just hand it to them. It's super adorable to see a dog walk away with a brown paper lunch bag hanging out of their mouth, and then they're gonna shred it. Again, monitor, make sure they're not eating the brown paper. They probably will not because it's full of the best stuff. And then at the end, exchange this used up paper for some other kind of small piece of food. That way you can clean this up safely without your dog guarding it. This enrichment activity is a DIY lick mat. You can buy lick mats from the store, but chances are you have everything you need at home to actually make one. And licking is a great form of sensory stimulation for your dog. It's calming and it's rewarding. As far as what you use for this kind of activity, you have a huge degree of options, but let me just show you some ideas and you can go from there. So the first thing that you want to identify is what you're going to use as a lick mat. Typically something that is plastic is going to work best. So old Tupperware, those old stained ones that you're not doing anything with, these can work really well. You can also use old ice cube trays. They can work super well also. Or something like an old Frisbee or disc golf disc. These work great too. So some kind of plastic object is usually what you're gonna start with. And then you need to pick your food. Because it's a lick mat, in this case, you need something that is wet and squishy. So unlike all the kibble and whole food enrichment, this is going to be more so where you're using things that are either liquidy or mushy. So for example, Old Banana, beyond what anyone in my house is going to eat, that's going to be great to mash up. I also have some leftover plain oatmeal, so there's no sweetener or anything in it, it's just plain oats. Peanut butter is great. Just make sure that you're using natural peanut butter that doesn't have anything added to it. So no xylitol, no sugar. You want the peanut butter that's just peanuts. Non-fat Greek yogurt is excellent for dogs in small amounts. Probiotic, probably use about a spoonful. Don't use too much more because it is dairy, but it can be very good for them. And then I have some ground flax and some chia seeds just to stick to all of the wet stuff. So to set this up, let me show you with two of these objects. Again, you can use whatever you want. So when you go to make a lick mat, you want to use a variety of things to make it extra interesting. So it's gonna be gross, but your dog's gonna love it. So I'll start here with some of this Greek yogurt. So you're just going to smear it. It's super easy. You can actually have the kids set this up if you want. If you give them all the materials and you have a younger kid, they can play chef here. So one side of this is covered in yogurt. And then if I were using the ice cube tray, I would put a little bit in each one. Well, not in each one, but in some of them, because I have other good stuff as well. So teeny bit in each one, maybe half a teaspoon, just a little bit to make it interesting. Then that Old Banana that's been sitting in your fruit bowl looking really sad, take that guy out and we're gonna mash it. Mashed banana sticks really well also, except that right there. So when you mash it, it's gonna stick. That's perfect. In your ice cube tray, you can put a little chunk. And again, just mash them up. If you give them their own spot, it gives your dog choice in what kind of food they eat, which is awesome. So they're not just being given something, they get to pick. Do I want to eat the banana first? Do I want to eat the yogurt first? Am I going to go for that leftover oatmeal that my family didn't finish for breakfast? Again, plain foods, whole foods, dog safe foods. So now we have some oats in there. If I'm using this one, smash it up. Next comes the peanut butter. Again, all natural, nothing weird added to it, no xylitol, no sugar, no excessive salt. So usually the natural brands are better. Just read the ingredients. Peanut butter is very high calorie, so make sure that you're using less of this, especially if you have a smaller dog, right? So I would not use something this big for a toy breed dog. It's too much. Again, just smear it in there somewhere. And then if you want to add some dog safe seeds, flax is really good, and so is chia. It's got a lot of fiber, so don't go overboard, right? We don't want Metamucil for your dogs, just enough to make it interesting. And then you have two options once you complete your DIY lick mat. You can either give it to your dog just like this at room temperature, or you can put it in the freezer and freeze it for a couple of hours so that it's more work to get these soft foods out of there. Whether you're using this frozen or at room temperature, this is not a meal replacement because this is not enough calories, obviously, and it takes longer to get through. So this is more of a fun time enrichment activity than a meal replacement. If you want to give it with a meal, that's fine, but make sure you have some kibble on the side or in another easy enrichment object. So your dog's going to lick at this, monitor them to make sure they're not eating the plastic, so don't crate them and leave the house while this is in there. And then when they're done, call them over, exchange for some type of delicious food, and then you can clean these up while they are otherwise occupied. In summary, make sure that when you are providing enrichment to your dogs, you are having them separated from one another. If you have more than one dog, you're not getting in the middle of it. You're letting them eat on their own and enrich themselves on their own, but you are always monitoring for safety. And then when you go to clean up, make sure you offer them something in return for leaving the remnants of that enrichment on the ground. That way you can safely clean it up. Remember that enrichment is something that every single dog needs. Dogs are super, super smart. They will get mental enrichment in one way or another, so it's up to you to provide them with those opportunities. That way they don't take matters into their own hands and just destroy something because they have nothing else to do. As always, please make sure that you like and subscribe for new content. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.